Email threats of violence received by the Los Angeles School District caused an unprecedented shutdown of close to 1,000 schools on Tuesday, but were later deemed not credible. Meanwhile, here in Colorado, 2 teenage girls at Mountain Vista High School were arrested after a tip alerted authorities of intent to harm students and staff members. Patty, thank goodness we are talking about not credible threats and things being caught ahead of time. We're not talking about tragedies being caused in either case. But when you had things going on in Los Angeles, you had a similar situation, but they didn't closing schools in New York, things right here in our backyard in Mountain Vista, in the middle of Douglas County. So it, again, could happen anywhere. What were some of your thoughts when you saw some of these issues come down?
Well, they're two very specific and very different things that I've noticed here. One is, do women really need that much equal time? What is it with these Colorado girls now getting into the, they're trying to go join ISIS. We had the 3 teenagers on top of Shannon Conley. And now we have not just the threats in Douglas County, but in Mesa County, where a 13-year-old girl said she was going to go shoot up her school. We don't know the full details yet of what went on in Douglas County. They're juveniles. We don't know their names. We know one was in court yesterday. We don't know whether this was a politically motivated attack. We don't know if they weren't invited to homecoming. We don't know what it was. But we do know that it is becoming easier and easier to disrupt our daily lives. And that gets into the second issue, which is how terrorism, both homegrown and abroad, has changed. I heard an FBI agent talking about how now terrorism is crowdsourced. It's not like the old days of Al-Qaeda where they had operatives organizing people top down. Now you send out a tweet, you put something on Facebook, and you basically say, go create chaos. And increasingly, we're seeing that that's what people are doing, whether they're politically motivated, they're just crazy. And it's easy to create chaos because you call in a threat or you somehow come up with something that sounds scary enough that you're going to shut down 1,000 schools. People are getting better at identifying which are real and which are not, but that is going to be a completely new art form and the kind of intelligence we really need to look at the years ahead.
David, do you see the situation where we're going to be prone to more overreactions, like maybe what people can accuse what happened in Los Angeles? Or is something of the warning system at least working, where somebody saw a text and said something, where at the very least, maybe we can't have those great Andy Griffith days of old, like when our innocence, when we had that, but at least folks are paying attention. Do you see a silver lining here or an overreaction?
Well, I think people speaking up when they see something repeatedly saves lives. I mean, not just as the Douglas County Sheriff said this week, but a few weeks after the Columbine attacks, there were some students in Aurora who were planning a similar kind of thing, because there is a huge copycat effect. And that was thwarted and turned out to be just a short story in the Denver Post of a few paragraphs without even the perpetrators' names would-be perpetrators' names mentioned. So absolutely people speaking up. And we see in San Bernardino the deadly effect of political correctness preventing people from speaking up. The next door neighbor saw a lot of suspicious stuff. Turned out it was the terrorists manufacturing pipe bombs in their garage, but he didn't say anything because that would be politically incorrect and you're profiling and stuff. And you can go back to the 9/11 attacks where the security agent who let the leader, Muhammad Atta, on the plane said to himself, boy, if this guy looks more like a Middle Eastern terrorist than anybody I've ever seen in my life. Oh, but I'm not supposed to think things like that. So you have to speak up, and sometimes the people you speak up about are going to be of Middle Eastern descent because they are disproportionately involved in some types of terrorism.
Eric, with sadly other tragedies to look to, I would imagine the tendency for a school district, whether it be as big as Los Angeles or even something like Jefferson County, the tendency to overreact is probably going to be the safety thing. Do you think we'll see more reactions like that rather than people thinking that's not a big deal?
I think you're going to see more superintendents or head of whatever entity it is, pulling their nails out, trying to figure out how to handle this. I do not envy the superintendent in Los Angeles and his people having to make that decision. I'm not sure what decision I would have made in that case. it clearly seems it was an overreaction. I think it became obvious even before that school day was very far along, or non-school day, we'll say, that it was an overreaction, that this was not credible. But let's also not forget that this was not only 2 weeks after San Bernardino, but that Los Angeles sits in that same basin, adjoins San Bernardino. So it's already a tinderbox of fear. And this is a fine line that we're going to have to walk as a country between not succumbing to fear or not letting fear rule our lives, but yet taking every reasonable precaution. And the underscore needs to be on the word reasonableness. And those are not easy calls to make, and particularly not easy calls to make in real time.
Pam, wrap it up for us.
You have to applaud the Los Angeles school district officials, because the bottom line is they would have never heard the end of it, and we would have never forgiven them had the threat been credible and any kids would have been injured. So I'd rather see kids miss a day of school than see a bunch of kids killed. The other thing we have to ask ourselves is what's going on with our young folks. Clearly, it doesn't appear the Los Angeles situation is attributable necessarily to the students, but the situation in Mountain Vista is, and the situation on the West Slopes here in Colorado is, what's happening with our young people that they're doing these sorts of things. And to David's point, we have to be vigilant. We all need to report. We all need to talk. But I think Eric makes the right point, reasonable basis for suspicion. We can't stereotype. My guess is the young girls in Douglas County are probably not of Middle Eastern extraction. My guess is the young woman on the West Slope is probably not of Middle Eastern extraction. It's the behavior and things that people articulate that we need to be attuned to. And maybe the point that all of them are illustrating is that we're not paying close enough attention to our kids or to one another. We've become too disjointed and disconnected.